All right, we're back. Practice Underwater Friday, again from George's house. Looking right at him.
I got a nice face for radio, Matt.
You do. The beard is majestic in person, I got to say. Full, thick, luscious. Everything you're looking for in a beard. You got it. So I do a good recap of part one of this interview, when I start interviewing Joe again. So you'll hear all about it. If you haven't listened to part one, please go back and listen. George, anything to get into before we jump in the interview?
No, I think we'll just save it for your intro, and then if you guys don't listen to part one, it's always nice to listen to these in succession. But if not, then Matt does a little recap at the beginning.
All right, let's throw it back to our interview with Dr. Joe, part two. All right, guys, we are back with our real guest, fake name, Dr. Joe. Just to recap, everyone, he graduated May of 2019. He started looking for practice way back, when he was in school. Found this practice in February. Closed on it in May. The seller stayed with him for 6 months. The practice was doing 1.1 million. He got it at 600,000. He's in a rural area. He's now alone at the practice. The seller has moved on and officially retired. He's got 5 ops. He's got 2 full-time hygienists, 2 assistants, an office manager, and another one starting at the front. We talked last time a little about his vision for the practice. Seeing an associate eventually getting in there, growing the new patient flow, increasing collections. So a little recap. If you haven't listened to the last one, go back and listen to it before you start this. Joe, welcome back.
Thanks.
All right, good to have you. So we have Joe's PBN from December, which when I told him we were doing December, he's like, "Don't do that, man. That's one of my worst months ever." And he was wrong about that. So strike against him for knowing his numbers. It was actually very in line with what he's doing. Sorry to roast you a little there, Joe.
That's all right.
So you're a PBN user. When did you officially bring it on? How have you used it? How's your experience been with it so far?
I love it. Probably about 2 or 3 months in, it's been invaluable. At the end of the day, the front office would print a report from Dentrix, and I don't know how anyone reads that. So just the way this is graphically and the projections, I think, is what I use it for. So, all the information's in Dentrix somewhere, but good luck finding it. So I use it more for, I don't really look at the day per se because it takes a while to update. I look at it for projection, so I can look at, what's been scheduled for next month real quickly, what, and our trends. So I can look at last month, next month real quickly. So it's, again, the information's out there, but it's just the way it's presented I really like.
I love that because it's like, it's forward looking. It's not like, what do they say? The lagging number versus leading number. Like your focus should really be on the leading number, like your next month's projection, what you added in dollar amount that day, like what you scheduled. It should really be what you're looking at on a daily basis. So I love where your head's at with that. So we got December's numbers up. Dr. Joe in December did 105 in collection, about 90,000 in adjusted production. So this was one, the seller was still there a little bit part-time this month. How did you feel this month go? What do you see when you look at these numbers?
The month felt really slow to me, but I also left with like 10 days left in the month to go home. So, went on vacation with my family and the selling doc. So I felt like we didn't have as many production days because the office was closed for Christmas more than it would be normally. So, and that's why my gut reaction was, oh no, that's my worst month, because that was a month we didn't work as many days. But like you said, I was wrong.
No, they're really strong numbers. You only worked 15 days this month and you did over 100 collections. Like that's a pretty good daily number you're at. If I knew how to do math that quick, I'd tell you what it was per day. But I can't. So, no, it was a very strong month. So, let's start with your diagnosis. So your patient acceptance, 70%, about where we want to see it. We like to see it around 80, but you're well on your way there. And kind of all the good thing about PBN, it breaks down how well you do at selling each procedure. Like there's a pie chart and it shows, what you presented in crowns, fillings, whatever it is, and how much of that was accepted. And your numbers are all very much in line with what we want to see. Your restorative acceptance was 70%. Your crowns were just about 50. So everything's strong there. I will make one note that at least in this month, you were extremely conservative in your treatment planning. You did 7 fillings for every crowns, and I didn't look back to see if that's your normal trend or if that's something that was just a one-time thing. How do you feel about kind of your treatment plan philosophy?
I think that may be a little lower because I feel like we do a lot of crowns. The selling doc did those big MODBL amalgams, so I feel like I'm seeing a lot of those, and I feel like we are talking to patients a lot more, and especially with the CERAC and the same day crowns, patients notice that they understand that really easily, and that, oh, I don't have to get that goop in my mouth, and I feel like we're doing a lot, but the numbers aren't showing that. So
yeah, I think that is one opportunity for you, because just scrolling back, it's pretty similar to what normally happens. So I think, especially with the CERAC, it's such a wow factor. Like, I can leave with this in one day. I don't have to wear it temporary. Like, that's a huge selling point and such an asset to have.
Is this showing both me and the selling doc's crown, or is that just me? Is that broken down per provider?
I think it's both of you.
Okay, so I wonder what mine is compared to, because I think he may be dragging me down.
Damn seller dragging you down.
I know they do that.
So do you use PBN to track overhead at all, or do you not?
I do. I linked it to QuickBooks, and that was a great day.
So I'm seeing your overheads a little high. I know you mentioned when you bought it, it was at 70%. Like, have you done any steps to lower it?
We did. Inventory control was the first thing. He liked to have backup in every room. I'm trying to bring everything into a central supply room, and then you go to that when you need it, trying to do a little more there. His overhead, and the only thing I don't like about the overhead in here, and I get it from my CPA, is that this overhead isn't a true EBITDA. So, my practice loan is in here, and that's, several $1,000s that's coming out of the practice. That's not a true overhead cost. So, the number in here, I feel, is high, and I don't like it. So we're going to focus on trying to bring that down as we move forward. And I think the easiest way to do that is to do some bigger procedures like implants, ortho.
So if you say you collect 100 in a month, let's include debt payment.
Okay.
What would your monthly expense be?
Probably 60.
So your percentages, though, you feel are in line with kind of industry standards where you want them to be? Like, where's the opportunity to lower, aside from out producing?
Really, my biggest expense is staff, and they are paid well for the area. I feel like if you pay your staff well, you'll get the best staff, and that's where that's kind of my biggest expense. I think we've, as far as consumables and all that stuff goes, I don't think that's moving the needle too much for savings. We're not advertising, so that's going to be an expense that I don't have right now. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer there of where I could bring down the expenses.
No, I think you're honestly right in line where you should be. What is the staff normally, percentage wise?
24% or so.
Yeah, it's right in a good spot. I'm with you. Like, find really good people and be okay with paying them a little more. Like, I just brought on a hygienist who I'm paying top dollar for because he's worth it. Like, he's just a beast at everything. So,
Oh yeah, I see the number, the overhead number. It's the CPA's messing with stuff in QuickBooks and is throwing stuff off because he's reallocating stuff for tax purposes.
That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah. So
perfect.
Yeah, I see what you're seeing now. So
okay.
Yeah, our overhead was about 60% it was 58.2%, I believe, before he started messing around with it, including the loan amount and everything.
This threw me off.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Nope, I understand.
No, I'm not going to apologize. It's the CPA's fault.
It is. I've yelled at him 3 times. I don't know what else I can do.
All right, let's talk hygiene for a second, because I had a couple observations here. So we have the 2 full-time people. Are these perio numbers right? Because it's showing extremely low.
They are. And that goes back to the patients are established here for so long. They've had the cleanings and the scaling replan in the past, and they're on maintenance or they are on prophies now, and we just don't have that bombed out mouth, the calculus. I've seen almost, I've been here 6 months, so I've seen all the recall patients for the most part, and we just don't have that patient. And I think that's hurting us in terms of, I think that's what we'll see with new patients, but our patient base just, I don't know if we're abnormal or what, but they're not doing
I mean, that'd be pretty abnormal.
Yeah,
so
I know.
In December, it's 0.4%.
Yeah.
That can't be real.
I know.
That's not a real number. That's almost nothing. Like something is gone awry in your perio program. Okay. What do you think? What do you think it is?
I wish I could tell you. I think.
Like, is it being checked? Like, are they probing?
Yes, they're probing every patient.
Okay.
At least they're telling me they are, and I'll see something on the X-ray and I'll probe, but I only have dental school to rely on, so I never had like a corporate job to see a lot of this stuff. But going through my mind and looking at X-rays, I just don't see that bone loss that we see. At dental school, people would sneeze and teeth would fall out. The bone loss was so severe, and I just don't see it here. Now, we have some older patients like 95, 98 years old that have some bone loss, but the tissue's gone, so there's not the pocket depth. So they're not, as weird as that number looks, and because I was like, okay, we got it 30%, and I talked to the staff about it, and they're like, we just don't see that. And so I don't know. I hope it's right. I don't hope it's wrong. I hope my patients are that good. But
I mean, are you seeing like probing depths, bleeding, inflammation? Are you seeing even in the absence of bone loss?
Very rarely.
It's just a unicorn patient population. We found the healthiest people in the country.
Well, I will re-engage with that, and I will make sure I find some bloody fives. So
yeah, I would just do a check on your part, like just see what's going on. I feel like there has to be an opportunity there.
I think you're right too. I think I'm going to start probing behind the hygienist just for my own edification,
or even like just communicating to them, however you want to do it, written, verbal, of what you expect when they see this is what they go to, whether you want to make a flow chart or however you want to do it. Just some clear expectations that is not something you have to add to your plate.
Okay.
I mean, everything else with hygiene is great. Like they're pre-appointing. There's obviously an opportunity for more fluoride if you ever want to get into that more. You're at 5%.
Yeah.
But they're pre-appointing. They're doing a pretty decent daily production. They're busy, obviously. So that was my biggest observation there.
Yeah. No, I couldn't believe, because you hear the 30 or 20 to 30%, and I don't know. I don't see it, but
you don't hear 0.4%.
No, you don't.
All right, I'll stop beating you up on that one.
Before we get back to the episode, I wanted to take a minute and thank Practice by Numbers. Without their help and allowing us to set up the shared practices dashboard, a lot of what we do on Practice Underwater wouldn't be possible. I want to take a minute and highlight a clip from the episode that we did with Rohit, where we highlighted some of the metrics that really matter most.
One of my pet peeves that I want to share is that when you talk to some of the providers that are really successful out there, that have been in practice for 20, 30 years, and they roll your eyes when you say you're going to manage by numbers and this and that, they have successful practices, they have built them, and they have something right they have done. And when they tell you the only thing you need to look at is your bank account, it's absolutely incorrect. Okay? It pisses me off every time I look at that and I see that comment on the Facebook group, because success is not happenstance. It just doesn't happen.
It's kind of baffling. It's an everyday kind of thing where you're striving to improve, you're striving to tighten your systems, you're striving to know your practice better, and just to get in that kind of complacent mode is easy. I can see how it happens, because you're so in the wheel and you get overwhelmed with things that this isn't something you want to think about a lot of times. But it really is so important that people focus on this kind of thing.
I hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you guys are interested in trying out Practice by Numbers and looking at your practice through the Shared Practices dashboard, and there are many other dashboards, you can go to practicebynumbers.com and set up a free trial.
All right. Another thing I want to point out. So one of the reasons I asked about the second hygienist is because, well, a couple of reasons. You have a decent sized patient population, got 2,300 patients. That's got to be a lot with insurances, with everything going on for one person to handle. Where I see that the ball being dropped is something I'm sure you've heard us talk about a lot, is the recall current percentage number.
Mm-hmm.
The percentage of your people who are current on the recall, yours is at 57%. We want to see it mid to high 60s, upwards of 70.
Okay.
So this is definitely a sizable pool out there overdue and who have gone to kind of slip through the cracks. That's probably what you're seeing when you're seeing like the patient size shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
20 going inactive every month because whatever reason, maybe that they didn't pre-appoint with the seller and you brought that on, and now these people have slipped through. So I see an opportunity there for you to task that other person to start this campaign.
Excellent. Okay.
And there's PBN's great for that, as far as like you can either print out lists of patients with their name, or she can like go in there and log every time she's contacting someone, with notes, with dates for follow-ups, however you want to treat it. You can just run reports from Dentrix. But I see that being once you've kind of figured out this capacity issue, like what you're going to do about it, whether bring on a third hygienist or just have that like hybrid part-time person coming in.
Yeah.
That once the capacity's increased, you hit this list hard.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, and we only take Delta Premier, so that's the one saving grace that the front desk doesn't only. She's only checking one. Well, we only have one insurance, so I think that helps too.
Mm-hmm. But other people are using insurance, right, at the practice?
Oh yeah. You're right. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, hygiene pre-appointment 90%. There's a little opportunity with the new patients you're getting in. So this month you saw 13. I don't know if this is just a new tab that I've been really focusing on with clients and for myself, this new patient pre-appointment percentage tab.
Mm-hmm.
So like you got 13 new patients, 5 of them left without an appointment. So you actually got 8 patients.
Yeah.
So there's an opportunity there to like tighten up your protocol as far as like what happens when a new patient comes in.
Yep, I see that. That's a good number.
It's just it's so easy to overlook. Like,
yep.
I got 25 new patients a month. Well, 12 of them left without an appointment, so you really didn't. Like,
yeah, 12 left and 10 went inactive. So
yeah, and then you have the net decrease.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing. That's my biggest fear right now.
So I want to get in. Let's jump back to the capacity thing again. So we mentioned the part-time, every once in a while hygienist. Like, what is the long-term? I mean, what is this year's solution to capacity issues?
Right. The only thing I think of was the hybrid hygienist. We are open 4 days a week, so I could open a 5th day if I really wanted to, move the needle. But I only want to do so much dentistry in a week. So
yeah.
we have the day to make up some of that stuff, but I also use that day to work on the business. I use that day to, train the staff. Like this morning was the CBCT training. So I like having that day. Now, maybe once a month we could do a day with new patients, and then with the hybrid, we could increase it a little bit. But, my wife is going to call it off at some point.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't sound to me like you want to work more than 4 days, which is totally fine. Like, I always say I didn't go to 4 years of dental school, 4 years of college, all this schooling to work 5 days a week. Like, that's just not happening.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is your state a expanded function dental assistant state?
Yes.
Okay. And are your assistants doing those functions?
Not really. One of the very first things I thought about doing is training them. I actually started working on them with doing fillings, with my Typodont and starting to work with them. But we haven't progressed that very much. And that's something I do need to re-engage with.
Yeah. Like what I'm getting at is there an avenue for you to have 3 hygienists and you working there? Like, is that possible?
I think it would be tough. Very tough.
Yeah, because like we're so limited with the 5, you know?
Yes.
Like you have all the bones to increase your numbers of patients and like really blow this out. We're just kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
So it's like either going the associate route, expanding into the, into the building more. Like I feel like that's your big egg of this year. Like, what am I going to do with capacity? Like, how am I going to like really increase this practice collections like you can by just figuring out this one thing first?
Yeah. And I've been running into that a lot. And my front desk tells me, my office manager tells me all the time, we don't have the chairs.
Yeah. And it's not going to be an easy one. It's either going to require like some creativity with hours with associates or like putting in the investment on the actual space.
Yes.
Where do you think you're leaning?
Probably the space, because it's going to take me a year to get an associate in here. Just with the rural, I think it's the selling doc had looked for almost 2 years, I think, before I came. And I don't know. I don't think he had that much traction, that many interested buyers. So I just think that the easiest and the most controllable, the one that I would have the most control over would be expanding the office in some way.
You never know though, like what he was offering. Like you've already voiced that you're willing to pay for good staff.
True.
So you dangle enough money, good, competitive, nice offer. It might not take you a year.
That's true. Yeah,
right,
and then just expand the hours and have them pick,
Yeah.
But then I work out of one room and they work out of one room with 3 hygienists.
So it could be like 3 hygienists in a day, but it's not always 3 hygienists at one time. It can be 2 at one time. There's creative ways to structure.
Got it. Okay.
And now with the 2 front desks, staggering their schedules a little bit, like, there's been plenty of docs out there. Paul Etchison's one that come to mind who got over $3 million in a 5-op practice before he expanded. Like,
wow.
Like there are people who do it. I'm in a 5-op office myself. I don't have the patient base you have though, so I don't have these space issues. But there are people who do it and find creative way to do it. It's just about which avenue you see for yourself.
Okay. Yeah.
The AR looks pretty good. There is a lot over 90. I don't know if that's like in-house payment plans or...
That's the seller doc. He never wrote anything off for 40 years, and I cannot get Dentrix or Practice by Numbers to cut the date on over 90. So the true number is subtract 47 from that. So my true number is what, 6?
Yeah. So that's, very in line with where it should be.
Yeah.
With that in mind.
Yeah. There's literally debt on there from 1990. So I don't think we're going to collect it.
I don't know. Maybe with some interest, that could be a nice boon to you.
Oh, yeah. Let's do
it. They'll totally go for that. You've probably been dead for 10 years.
Yeah.
What else, when you look at this dashboard? I've honestly covered most of your numbers are well in line with where they should. I don't have a ton of observations other than what I've said. So is there anything that you see, an opportunity you see in these numbers that show up in these?
I hear a lot about the same day treatment. I think you and Georgia are a little different on that. And we really don't do any same day treatment. So if it's found in hygiene, it's 4 to 6 weeks before I see the patient. And I know that's not ideal, but that's another barrier with the space like we talked about. So the same day treatment, I feel like, is somewhere where we just don't have the capacity. And then, the chair space.
Yeah. It's just the growth is so hindered. It's gonna increase a little bit as you bring on implants and start doing more higher value treatment. But some of it, like you said, is offset with not having the 2 docs. So it's like you're gonna be pretty consistent 105, 110 until you make a change with capacity. Like that's kind of just where you're gonna live, and you're making a good living. It's not like something's wrong,
right?
But like if you want to grow past it, that's just something you have to figure out.
Right. And that's, I knew it was coming. I just didn't think about it till now.
That's the value of a coach. They can mirror things that are there, but just kind of hadn't like not at the front of your brain.
Right.
I see kind of the game plan for you. You figure this capacity issue more in the interim, getting with Swell, getting their Google reviews up, like starting to think, where I want my marketing dollars to go. Getting, as I visited your website, it's under construction right now.
Yep.
So getting that construction finished.
Yeah.
And then just like, bringing in the implants that you like to do and with the same day, I love same day dentistry. It's one of my favorite things ever. Like creating money on the schedule that wasn't there before is like my best part of my day. But the space issues are an issue and you kind of can't get around that in the interim. So, I mean, you're on a great path. I just think you got one big project ahead of you to like where you can really start having fun with this and seeing like some cool growth.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's one of the big reasons I bought it. It's just the biggest thing that scares me, like I said, is the lost patients. We're losing 400. It says 390 in the last 9 months. So I'm worried that if that continues and we don't have new blood, new patients coming in, where does that leave me in 2 to 5 years? So I know what we got to do. It's hard to implement it when I don't have the space right now. It's like by the time I have the space to see the new patients, I'm behind the 8 ball.
Right. I mean, so currently, do you operate out of 3 ops?
Yes.
Pretty.
I have the CEREC. I have a CEREC op pretty much. So I'll do 2 to 4 crowns a day in there, and they're sitting, and then I'll bounce between the other 2. One of the other ones is usually another productive one with fillings and that kind of stuff, and then the other one is usually my non-productive one. So denture try-ins, adjustments, emergencies. So I utilize all 3 most of the time.
Yeah.
But one of them, a patient's usually sitting there for an hour.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's one area you could look to just bringing them back to the waiting room.
Yeah.
Getting them something, fitting something in. Especially on these days where you're going to have the third hygienist, you're going to have to get creative with how things are handled. And I know it's not worth it to like send the crown onto a lab. It's just, you have this Eric, you might as well use it.
Right.
Yeah, that's one thing you can do, but like you said, these patients are going to like not just fall through the cracks, they're going to seep into the depths of the earth.
Yeah.
If they're not reactivated.
Yeah.
Like they're gone.
Yep. I know it and I can see it. It's just, I can't, even if we called all of them and said, hey, come in, we'll see you in 6 months. Well, that's probably why they left, is they were having a hard time getting in for basic concerns.
Maybe, have you ever thought of doing house calls?
I have not.
That solves your capacity issue right there.
I get a van down by the river and have people just meet me down there.
Hey, don't joke. That's like a real thing in dentistry now. These mobile vans, they're taking over.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, like in New York City, they have them. In all the cities, it's like the mobile hygiene things are like they're a thing. That's good. They're coming.
Oh, man. Well, we'll get dentistry done at Walmart, too, and then we'll be set.
That's also coming.
I know. So, I've heard that.
I'm telling you, stay in that area. There's some crazy stuff happening in these other parts of the country.
Yeah, I'll stay away from the big city.
You want no part of them.
Nope.
Anything else on here we didn't cover before we kind of wrap up?
No, I think you opened my eyes to a lot of stuff here, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and again, I want to acknowledge you for how well prepared you were for this, and you saw the opportunity in this practice, and you jumped into it so quickly out of school, which takes a ton of guts. Like you really took a big risk, and you got the big payout. Like and how well the transition has gone is indicative of your leadership. Like how well the staff took you in. It's not just the seller, how he portrayed you. It's what you brought and who you were when you took over. And that's something that's really cool to see. And that I think people listening can take a lesson from it, because this is a transition done well. And it's someone who just graduated out of school. So whatever preconceived notions you have out there about, when you're ready for this kind of thing, like it can be done, and it can be done like exquisitely. So thank you for showing everyone that.
No, well, thank you. I appreciate it. That means a lot.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that part 2 of the interview. I know I certainly did. We're going to get into a couple big ticket items that actually, surprisingly, we haven't discussed too much with me and you, George. Capacity issues. I know you have a lot of thoughts there, a lot of wisdom to add. I think you can probably agree that is a big issue for Joe going forward. And love to get your input on split scheduling, adding in doctors, creating new ops, like a sequence of everything. Kind of just run with it wherever you want to go.
Yeah, Joe's an interesting spot. He's kind of barely too big for one doc to really have this practice, in terms of size. He had a seller with him. So it's going to put some stress on him being there by himself. And long term, his goals are to have two or, move towards the group practice. And so I think, if we do pre-owner coaching, and so I think pre-owner coaching wise, we put 6 ops as like the bare minimum. I know we might disagree on this a bit, but from a group practice perspective, 6 is kind of like the bare minimum where you can really start to have 2 docs there at once. And once you can have 2 docs there at once, the split scheduling thing, it's difficult. Like there's a lot of challenges with it, having 2 sets of staff, having people, because in a 12-hour day, if you have 12-hour days, there's no lunches. 6 hours is a very short shift. And so it's very hard to get a staff to really buy into that. And people can do it, and it's definitely successful. I think transitioning an office from a non-split schedule to a split schedule is very challenging, especially in acquisition where the staff has been there for a long time and is very accustomed to their hours. And so, it works really well. Like a guy that I think of is Paul Etchison, who did it from the startup perspective, where he's always been extended hours and he's always done some sort of split shifting. And so the earlier you introduce that, the easier it is. But in his case, the practice has been around, the staff has been there for a really long time. So split scheduling doesn't look to me like the solution for him, especially if he can add 2 ops on his current floor. He can go to 7 right away, and then you can run 3 hygiene, and then each doctor can have, or he has 3 rooms to himself, but you could really run, really, I think when I look at it, and I guess I always think through hygiene, that's kind of the way I've always looked at things, and you really need 2 hygienists per doctor day. So 2 hygiene days per doctor day. And so you kind of do that math, and then you start figuring out when he's gonna have to add for a period check for 3 hygienists by himself if he really wants a smooth transition to a 2-doctor practice, because you really need to get 3 hygienists busy, and then you push for the 4th when that second doc comes on.
That's one question I have. So in that 3 hygienist period, you would still recommend keeping the 1 doc and not having the 2 and sharing the 3?
It's hard because, yeah, right. There's going to be a drop off in, when you check for too much hygiene, what you'll see is your diagnosis percentage will go down, your treatment plan size will go down, and you're really rushing through exams and you're, clinically, if he's running 3 chairs, he probably can't check for 3 hygienists. It'd be my guess. I think I'm one of the very few dentists who can actually check for a lot of hygiene and still be productive on the restorative side. I think most, it's very difficult. So he might have to coincide the hiring of an associate with the addition of a 3rd hygienist and just either have his production be a little less or have the associate's production, just kind of grow as hygiene grows, and have an associate that's okay with that expectation.
Yeah, I don't know. I see that more. I see having the 3 hygienists and having the 2 docs there. I worked in a practice before I owned it, which was 2 docs, 1 hygienist. Can you even imagine that? 4 ops.
That sounds
900 square feet.
Yeah, no. big X on my.
No.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
It was just for sale, so.
Oh yeah, no thanks.
So but, I know it can be possible, with even less.
Yeah, but I guess the thing is, he's not so who is this doc? Really, this doc is not a fuel efficient vehicle. If we're gonna, look at him that way, patient efficiency is pretty low. So he needs a lot of hygienists to stay productive. So he's not the kind of doc that could have, a low hygiene to doctor ratio. He needs to have a plethora of patients. And his new patient flow is a big problem. If he's looking to really long-term have an associate, you need to have a very consistent, healthy new patient flow. So I think for him, it's really just addressing his capacity issues, maybe, slowly building out the space a little bit, slowly growing his hygiene department and growing his new patient flow, and then thinking about adding doctors. Now, the one thing that you can do that I didn't do, which I really wish I did, and I did it the second time around, is open a day when you add an associate. That is a huge thing, because then you can just have a day where you're not there, where you can run 2 hygiene or 3 hygiene and have your associate there, and that will pay for the associate pretty much. And then it also gives you the ability to, expand your capacity without having to expand the space as much. So I would almost necessitate that if he's not, Monday through Friday already, then to go that way with the addition of an associate.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main question that's going to come, in a listener head hearing that is, okay, that sounds great. How do I know I'm ready to add another day? Like, do I have enough patience to support that? Like, is my associate just going to be sitting there with 2 hygiene and everyone's not busy? Like, that's the fear I know that would initially come up in my head, and I would imagine for a lot of people.
Yeah,
how do you know that?
So your new patient flow is your ability to. So look at his recall percentage is low.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 56%?
Yeah.
And so if you look at his recall percentage at 56%, I know he has a high amount of overdue patients in his patient pool. So he has the ability to add a day. If he had higher new patient flow, I'd feel more confident in that because he has 2 sources of filling patients for that opening. But, my recall current percentage is 70%, which is, that's kind of as high as you can really get it. And so he has like 15% of his practice, just like 300 patients, just sitting there to be brought in. That can fill a day. So, it has the bones of it, but does he have the systems in place? Does he have the staff that can do it? Does he have the new patient flow? Not yet. But those are all things I'd be working on so that when I get to that point, I'm ready.
Yeah. And you made a great point there. He needs a lot more patients around to be productive. Like his diagnosis percentage is low, his average treatment size is low, his hygienists do a low daily. So
his fuel efficiency is low.
Yeah. So he needs this building up of new patients. He needs bringing these people back in. Like his patient flow is kind of his big bottleneck right now.
Yeah, and I think associate selection for him will be important, right? Picking an associate that can maybe is even a little bit more efficient than him, which might be a little bit of hit to the ego, but that's what the practice needs. Awesome.
Anything else for Dr. Joe here?
No, I think he's got a nice situation, but I think he also has that's challenging. The road from 1 to 2 docs is bumpy. It really is.
Yeah.
And
it's full of trying things and
shifting gears, right? It's like you're driving a stick vehicle and you have to shift your gears at the perfect time, and it's almost never the right time to do anything, but you just do your best guess, and it's hard to really pick the right times to shift those gears, but that's what's required in the situation.
Yeah, and that payoff is totally worth it.
Huge. Yeah. Totally worth it.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you next week for another episode of Practice Underwater.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Practice Underwater. We'll see you guys next week.
If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with either Dr. George Hariri or Dr. Matt Garino, our contact emails are in the show notes.
And if you're interested in being on Practice Underwater as a guest, where we could look at your practice anonymously, you can go ahead and contact the email in the show notes and follow those directions to get on the show. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next week on Practice Underwater.